Hi everyone, my name is João Ferreira and this is my vlog about skills and capacities for the Master of Strength and Conditioning in St. Mary's University. Setting the goal for this video, the primary one is to screen errors in the back squat and the deadlift exercises, two of the most utilized exercises in the strength and conditioning world. Because observing a pattern as a whole can't be defined as an assessment, further exercises will be addressed to identify the cause of the possible lack of quality in the patterns. In the end, I find it important to suggest an orientation in training to improve the dysfunctions that were found and in that way improve the patterns involved in this video. It is important to differ a capacity issue from a skill issue. Capacity issue implies a lack of motor control or mobility, or some combination of these parameters, that doesn't allow the individual to perform the exercises, even if technically the athlete possesses all the capabilities. Therefore, when in the presence of the capacity issue, correction must be done of the pattern, addressing the specific dysfunctions with exercises. In other way, when skill is lacking, mobility and motor control are functional, and correction through coaching cues within the pattern or singular variations is needed. Both subjects were former volleyball players. The first kept enrolled in a physical active life, and subject B returned in the last month to training after 3 years of inactive life. As the athletes regularly do deadlift and back squats, no further feedback or orientation was given to maintain the regular pattern of the athletes. It is important to state as well that all the lines were calibrated with references within the context to prevent errors for possible inclinations during the recording. In subject A, at first glance in the screen, it's clear that the athlete can barely break parallel, assumes the excessive forward lean of the trunk, and the accent phase begins with the knee extension and barely no hip movement. At the bottom of the back squat, the athlete presents a small depth, a forward lean of 46 degrees of the trunk. Possibly because of this anterior transfer of load, it seems to provoke a small heel raise at the right lower limb. The anterior translation of the knee over the feet is up to the requirements. At this moment, lack of mobility or motor control at the ankle, hip, or even thorax spine could be the possible causes of this lack of quality at the pattern, even if ankle is not the most probable one due to the anterior shank done. Therefore, testing the function of these structures has to be done. Also, it's important to state that literature refers that individuals with long femurs as this athlete, as anatomically is more difficult to adopt a big depth at the squat and greater degrees of forward lean are observable. In the front view, a slight asymmetry in the depth of both limbs seems to appear. At the right lower limb appears to descend slightly more than the left. Possible symmetrical mobilities or motor control in these structures in the lower limb can be encountered. During the accent phase, adding to the lack of hip extension in the first moment, the left foot loses contact in all the recorded repetitions. This could be a consequence of a greater transfer to the contralateral lower limb that, as it was seen, can descend more to the bottom of the squat. In the deadlift, again, we can see a knee-dominant strategy during the final part of the descent phase and during the initial part of the ascent phase. For these two footage, it is possible to say that is an athlete that feels comfortable with knee-dominant strategies, as in the bottom of this deadlift, the athlete adopts squat-like patterns. Also, in some repetitions, some lack of anti-flexion control at the trunk is observable, that diminish the mechanical advantage of the upper quadrant. As it can be seen, at the bottom of the deadlift, hip flexion angle is of 60 degrees and the knee flexion angle is of 115. After the screen, active mobility testing of the ankle, hips, and thoracic spine were done, not representing a problem. In the end, with addition of cushion cues, keep your trunk straight and push off the ground, the athlete did a functional overhead squat that normally is more demanding than the back squat. allowing to say that this individual lacks skills at back squat and deadlift patterns. Athlete B, in the first rough screen of the back squat, lumbar pelvic tucking, lack of depth, and anterior translation of the knee is seen. These characteristics are confirmed as we freeze the frame in the bottom of the squat, where a forward trunk lean of 41 degrees is seen, and drawing a line through the knees cuts the feet, resulting in a lack of shank ankle. All these considerations seem to point to a dysfunction at the ankle, hip, or thoracic spine, like subject A, and this way these structures were addressed further. During the deadlift, the athlete was not comfortable to do the full deadlift, and in this way performed a Romanian deadlift. The slightly rounded back from the lumbar to thoracic spine could be a problem of mobility in hip flexion, as the spine has to flex, and even that way the athlete does not possess the comfort of performing a deadlift. This rounded back, similarly as athlete A, does not allow a mechanical advantage to the upper body to perform the exercise. During the half kneeling is observable a limited ankle in dorsiflexion at the right and in both knees in flexion. Finalizing the testing, thoracic spine was not limited. An overhead squat was done compared with subject A. In this case, even with coaching cues, no functional pattern was achieved, standing the difference between a faulty squat deadlift due to the capacity or skill. Because of the symmetry of the pattern in athlete B possible, the major issue is the hip flexion. If dorsiflexion was the major issue, asymmetry in the bottom of the patterns should be expected. To the athlete A with skill issues, a program oriented with the goal of keeping the trunk straight during the squat, in performing the triple extension with lower limbs, for example with bend active flexion squatting and squatting facing a wall, and repatterning the deadlift with coaching cues are suggested. To athlete B with capacity issues, a program oriented to the improvement of hip flexion in both lower limbs and dorsiflexion at the right ankle mobility, at the same time offering simpler variations of both movements, are advised to help repatterning the squat and deadlift movements and improve strength within the program. Box squats, step-ups, Romanian deadlifts to the wall, etc. are suggested. And with this I conclude my video, again stating the difference between the skill and capacity issue within the deadlift and back squat. To finalize this video, I just wanted to state that I'm willing to discuss my reasoning in both athletes, and hopefully it was interesting and useful to hear me.